In the very heart of Central America, there's a nation that was forged in fire, and now it's being reborn. It's a land of volcanoes, of deep and often painful history, and right now, it's the center of a radical experiment the entire world is watching. This is the story of El Salvador.
So let's just get right into it. How can one country hold two realities that seem so completely opposite? I mean, on one hand, you have a security crackdown so massive that it's given them the highest incarceration rate on the entire planet. And on the other, a wild leap into the future of money, becoming the very first nation to make Bitcoin a national currency. To even begin to understand how this is all happening, we have to look back at a past that was truly forged in fire.
You know, for all its turbulence, there's a real fondness for this place. It's often called Pulgarcito de America, or the Tom Thumb of the Americas. And that name, it really speaks to its small size, but it says nothing about its giant spirit.
And just to put that size into perspective, El Salvador is the smallest country in all of continental America. You could fit the entire country inside the state of Massachusetts, with room to spare. It's a very compressed landscape. But squeezed into that small space, over 6 million people. That makes it the most densely populated nation on the mainland. So you see, everything here, it just feels more concentrated, more intense.
And that intensity is literally baked into the land itself. El Salvador sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire and is home to more than 20 volcanoes. It's a place that has been physically shaped by immense pressure and violent eruptions, a perfect metaphor, really, for its history.
And that volcanic energy, well, you see it mirrored in its history. The story of the El Salvador we see today was written through decades of brutal conflict, deep inequality, and a constant violent struggle for control.
The roots of the modern crisis, they run deep. It all started back in the late 19th century, when a small group of powerful families, a coffee oligarchy, took control of nearly all the land and wealth, creating this staggering divide. The tension just simmered until 1932, when it boiled over into La Matanza, a horrific massacre of peasants who were just demanding their rights. That trauma never healed. It just festered for decades, until it finally exploded into a devastating 12-year civil war that tore the nation apart. A war that only officially ended with the peace accords of 1992.
The human cost was almost unimaginable. A UN report later confirmed that over 75,000 people were killed. But the real scars ran even deeper, with thousands of families left forever wondering what happened to their loved ones who had simply disappeared.
So the peace accords, they ended the civil war on paper, but they didn't end the violence. No, instead, a new kind of war began. This one wasn't fought in the mountains by guerrillas and soldiers. It was fought on the streets of the cities.
And into that post-war power vacuum stepped the Maras. These were street gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18, which were actually forged in the prisons and on the streets of Los Angeles. When their members were deported back to El Salvador, they entered a fractured country they barely even knew. And in that instability, they didn't just survive, they thrived, growing into terrifyingly powerful international criminal organizations.
For almost 3 decades, they held the entire nation hostage. Their reign of terror, fueled by extortion and unimaginable violence, gave El Salvador one of the highest murder rates in the world. It became a place that was, for many, simply synonymous with fear.
And then, everything changed. A political outsider named Nayib Bukele burst onto the scene. He promised to completely shatter the old way of doing things, and he kicked off a national gamble on a scale that nobody had ever seen before.
Okay, so this is the crucial part. The results of his crackdown on the gangs have been, just looking at the numbers, nothing short of astonishing. In 2015, the homicide rate was a catastrophic 103 per 100,000 people. By 2024, it had plummeted to just 1.9. It's a statistical miracle that has completely transformed daily life for millions of Salvadorans.
But, and this is a huge but, that miracle came at a staggering cost. To achieve this new peace, the government declared a state of emergency, which suspended some civil liberties and led to the arrests of over 70,000 suspected gang members. This single action catapulted El Salvador to having the highest incarceration rate in the entire world, and not just by a little, but by a massive margin.
And Bukele's war on gangs was just one part of his grand plan to disrupt the old order. The other part was just as radical, a huge leap into a new economic frontier. In 2021, El Salvador did something no other country on earth had done. It made Bitcoin legal tender. a bold, incredibly high-risk bet on a decentralized financial future.
But beyond the shocking headlines about gangs and cryptocurrency, what is the actual soul of this nation? Well, to find that, you have to look past the politics. You have to look to its people, to their resilience, and to their culture.
You see, the Salvadoran spirit extends far beyond its physical borders. The diaspora, Salvadorans living and working abroad, is the nation's economic lifeline. Remittances, which is the money they send home, make up a staggering 20% of the country's entire GDP. It's what keeps countless families afloat.
And maybe nothing captures the heart of the culture better than the pupusa. It's so much more than just the national dish. It's a symbol. It's the simple, warm, handmade staple that represents community, family, and the quiet, enduring strength of a people who have weathered just unimaginable storms.
And all of this brings us right back to today. El Salvador stands at a profound crossroads. It's facing these huge, fundamental questions about what kind of nation it wants to be and what it's willing to sacrifice to get there.
You can think of it as the Salvadorian bargain. On one side of the ledger, you've got the gains, an unprecedented level of security, a bold experiment in economic innovation, and a total rebranding on the world stage. But on the other side, the costs are just as stark. Deep concerns over civil liberties and human rights, the massive financial risk of its Bitcoin gamble, and intense scrutiny from the rest of the world.
And so it leaves us with the ultimate question. Safety at what cost? Is a society where people finally feel safe to walk the streets worth sacrificing their fundamental rights? Has El Salvador stumbled upon a new model for national revival, or is this a cautionary tale in the making? The phoenix of the Americas is rising from the ashes, there's no doubt about that. But what it will look like when it's done and the true price of its rebirth, well, that remains to be seen.